Mr. President, it is now 3 o'clock.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our continued commission meeting for this week. We will begin again with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States and to the republic, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Again, thank you. And we're going to do something a little bit different as we begin today. Maybe because it's Stacy's birthday, maybe because it's her lifetime goal to conduct an ACHD commission meeting, or maybe it's just because we need someone to bring us up to speed through what we did on Wednesday to where we will start today. Stacy, would you do that?
Well, thank you. Yes, for a complete record of today's meeting. The meeting for May 19th was opened at 12 o'clock noon. There was a motion by Commissioner May, second by Commissioner Pickering. It was unanimous vote for the adoption of the agenda. Then there was another motion by Commissioner Pickering, second by Commissioner McKinney to adopt the consent agenda. There was a unanimous vote in favor. That is at the time that we postponed the meeting, and now we are on to the regular agenda. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I guess the funny thing was that particular power outage probably hit us worse than anyone else in the city, unfortunately. But here we are, and we will begin our regular agenda. The first item is a condemnation of public right-of-way for the Cloverdale Columbia to Overland project, parcel 0. It's owned by someone named Five Code, and this is quasi-judicial. So we will open the public hearing with Dave Serdar, our right-of-way supervisor.
Thank you, President Goldthorpe, Commissioners. For the record, David Serdar, right-of-way supervisor, Ada County Highway District. This is a decision briefing for a condemnation on Cloverdale Road, Columbia to Overland Corridor Preservation. The owner of the property is Five Coat, and the parcel is O. ACHD is doing a corridor preservation on Cloverdale Road. Funding for the right-of-way is provided in the fiscal year 21 budget, and the work is scheduled in this section to begin in fiscal year 2025. The property is 9 acres in the before condition. The acquisition is approximately 3,333 square feet, which leaves the size of the parcel 8.92 acres in the after condition. This property is located in the Southwest Residential District, so it's a residential type of zoning. As you can see, this is kind of a farther away map. This is the area of the project, or this particular property. Here's a more close-up view of the property. There is no permanent easement on this. This is actually the full right-of-way acquisition. An offer was made in June 2020. Owner's representative Dan Dixon initially contacted ACHD's agent and stated they were reviewing the offer with the owner. Despite repeated attempts to get an answer from the owner's representative, there was no further contact with ACHD. A final 10-day offer letter was mailed to the owner, after which ACHD staff attempted to contact the owner's spouse by phone, which was the only number we had for the family. This condemnation is essentially being done because of the lack of response from the owner. As always, if we do have a response from the owner, we will continue negotiations. It is staff recommendation that we declare the acquisition area necessary for the project and public use, authorize staff to proceed with the condemnation action, execute an order of condemnation for the acquisition area. I will remain standing for any questions.
Yeah, Dave, we've been considering, talking about this a little bit for a while now. And the concern has been, of course, the lack of communication and just exactly who the 5-coat people are. As we continue on attempting to communicate, do we ever or could we possibly send a couple of you out to knock on the door?
Yes. Well, I can certainly do that personally and would be happy to do
Well,
that.
I wouldn't want you to do it by yourself.
Oh, I understood.
Okay, and I'd be happy to go with you if you needed a companion.
Okay.
But serious, because
So-
he said, she said stuff, and we've been trying very hard, and you never know what
Yeah.
you're going to expect.
President Goldthorpe, I certainly, as staff, we will do that. Michelle is my agent on this,
Yep.
and I would be happy to accompany her out on an acquisition. We do this quite a bit where we actually do knock on doors. So it was a little unique in this because we didn't send the information to Mr. Dixon. We sent it to the 5-coats, and Mr. Dixon had that information and contacted us. So that's why this is a little bit different than I think. And then all of a sudden there's been no contact back. So
Yeah.
I will certainly do that before we turn the file over to our legal team, and we'll do that.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions from the commission? Okay, do we have anyone representing the 5-coats? No. Okay, then without any further communication or questions or comments, I'll close the hearing. And the matter is now before the commission for a motion.
Mr. President, I would move to authorize staff to proceed with the condemnation process with the caveat that Mr. Surter and, is it Michelle?
President Goldthorpe, Commissioner May, Michelle White.
Would accompany you to physically visit the address and see if they can speak to the owner.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 Mr. President,
Yes?
Mr. President, I just want to point out that we've designated all of these arterials as 5 lanes in our plan, and I think there's no justification for some of the smaller ones, 5 Mile and Maple Grove and Locust Grove. But Cloverdale clearly going all the way down to Cuna is justified. And so I think there is a public purpose here, which is why I would support this and wouldn't on other arterials. So I think it's really important that we point out that some are going to be expressways and that will probably impose costs of sound walls for protecting these neighborhoods once these roads are built out and turned into expressways. With 5 lanes and a lot of traffic coming up from the far south. But I just want to point out that it's important that not every single mile functions that way. We have to designate which ones are, and clearly Cloverdale, along with Meridian Road, fit that bill. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. And I won't even have to channel you because I believe everybody's heard me express the same concerns. So all in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you. We'll go to item number 2, which is resolution number 2346, a vacation exchange of public right-of-way at 41st Street and the Boardwalk Apartments. This is, again, quasi-judicial, and we're being asked for a request for approval. It's also a public hearing. And so we'll hear from David Serdar again.
Thank
No
you.
wonder you wore a suit.
I knew I was going to be the star of the show. Thank you, President Goldthorpe, Commissioners. Once again, this is David. My name is David Serdar. I'm the right-of-way supervisor for Ada County Highway District. This is a vacation on 41st Street for the Boardwalk Apartments. ACHD has received an application from Crispy Investments, LLC, as well as 6 Point Teaser Investments, LLC. Development Services has been reviewing their application, their project, as part of a development application. The vacation is 0.043 acres, and the exchange area is 0.108 acres. ACHD is getting twice the amount of acreage, so consequently more value of the vacation than of the exchange than we are from the vacation. This is a vicinity map of the vacation. As you can see, here's Veterans Memorial Parkway right here. Here is the Boise River. We have the Greenbelt going right through there. This is a more close-up view of the vacation. The vacation itself is in red. The exchange is in green. Obviously, that's to create a cul-de-sac, a turnaround. The other issue is that we have checked with the applicant, and they will continue and put this restriction in the paperwork. They will have to maintain access to the Greenbelt through this area. So that has been addressed.
Good.
It is staff recommendation that the commission adopt and sign resolution 2346, authorizing the proposed vacation exchange of public right-of-way as applicant has completed all necessary requirements. I will remain standing for any questions.
Are there any questions, comments for Mr. Serdar?
No, Mr. President, no,
Yes.
I just thank Dave for doing that, and I'm always amused from the right-of-way folks. It's like we're getting twice what we're giving up, but if you had maintenance up there, they're saying, oh, we're acquiring twice the maintenance obligation than what we had before. So it depends on your perspective.
Thank you. I'm just grateful that we're insisting on the continuation of some good connectivity with the Greenbelt. I think that's very important. Any other comments? Stacy, do we have someone from the applicant?
We do not.
Okay, then I'll close the public hearing, and the matter is before the commission for motion and adoption or not.
Mr. President, I would move to adopt Resolution 2346.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Number 3, which is the real important reason why we're here today, is for noticing requirements especially, is the FY 2021 spring auction packet, auctioning our surplus equipment. And we'll hear about that from Aaron Chestnut, our fleet coordinator.
Thank you. President Goldthorpe, Commissioners, for the record, Aaron Chestnut, Fleet Coordinator. I'm joined today by Grant Pelly, Community Aid Operations, or Van Pool Operations Specialist. Oh, yep, there we go. Thanks, Jen. Getting a little nervous. Today we're here I'm presenting Resolution 2343, the sale and surplus of personal property for the Ada County Highway District. This property is no longer useful to the district and is declaring such personal property to be surplused with the values to be determined in excess of $10,000. So we're requesting the authorization of the sale for the subject of personal property listed in Exhibit A. It was advertised for Wednesday, May 19th. However, due to the power outage, we have rescheduled for today, Friday, May 21st. Fund 1 has 24 pieces of equipment, and that's more of our fleet. So we have 24 pieces with a miscellaneous expected value of $427,250. We do have Fund 2, which is our commuter ride vans. We have 16 pieces with an estimated value of $163,950. Staff recommendations that the Commission approves Resolution 2343, declaring this property surplus as listed in Exhibit A. Again, it's no longer useful to the district and is asked to be sold at public auction by Ritchie Brothers on Thursday, June 3rd, with a live auction. This will contain a lot of our heavy construction equipment. Dealer's auto auction will be held on Saturday, June 5th in Nampa. This is a live auction on site with commuter ride vans and a mix of light duty and heavy duty equipment. And I will stand for any questions.
Are there any questions or comments?
No?
Guess not. We're always eagerly anticipating more than our estimate. So after the first week of June, I'll be excited to hear what the report is. Anyway, so the matter is before the Commission for adoption. Do I have a motion?
Commissioner Goldthorpe, if you could close the public hearing, and also for the record, Commissioner McKinney has
I'm
now
sorry.
joined.
I didn't even read that public hearing part. We didn't open, but it's open. Now we'll close it. Thank you. So the matter is now properly before the Commission for a motion.
Mr. President, I would move Resolution 2343.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. That completes our regular agenda items. Is there anyone here for public communications?
It's not.
No. Okay, then our meeting is adjourned and we'll go right into our work sessions. So our first work session, which is about May in Motion, presentation by Christina Torkelson and Kathleen Godfrey, and here's Kathleen.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, President Goldthorpe and Commissioners. Thank you for having me here today. For the record, my name is Kathleen Godfrey, and I am a Marketing Outreach Specialist for ACHD Commuter Ride. I work with local employers and commuters year-round to promote alternative smart commute options. Today, I'm excited to share a little bit about our annual Smart Commute campaign called May in Motion. May in Motion started 16 years ago as an annual awards campaign where organizations come together to promote the use of smart commute options, such as vanpool, carpool, transit, biking, walking, and working from home. Participating organizations educate their employees on smart commute options through fun competitions, challenges, and educational events with the assistance of the commuter ride team. During May in Motion, organizations rally their employees and receive public recognition for their level of commitment to smarter commuting. No matter the size of the organization or the resources they have available, we encourage organizations to participate and help make Treasure Valley a better place to live and to work. May in Motion awards are based on 3 criteria. First, employee participation in May in Motion, which is the percentage of employees who log at least 4 smart commute trips for the month of May. Second, smart commute incentives and subsidies offered to employees, such as bus or vanpool fare subsidies, bike storage, or reduced parking rates for carpoolers. And last, how well the organization promoted sustainable smart transportation such as hosting events and sharing information about smart commute options. Throughout the years, May in Motion has maintained the same goal, to increase smart commuting in Treasure Valley. Commuter Ride supports organizations in educating and incentivizing both employers and commuters. We introduced them to our Commuter Ride Works Employer Assistance Program to help establish an ongoing transportation benefit program for their employees within the company. We hope that by working hand in hand, we are demonstrating the value of smart commuting to the employer, the commuter, and the community. May in Motion and smart commuting in general provides health, financial, and environmental savings. When fewer single-occupant vehicles are on the roadways, we reduce roadway wear and tear, preventing premature maintenance and expansion needs. It reduces the number of vehicle miles traveled, resulting in less congestion and harmful CO2 pollutants in the air. May in Motion encourages commuters to try an active or less stressful commute that benefits their physical and mental well-being. Year to date, commuters have removed nearly 350,000 vehicle miles traveled, which is almost 1.5 trips to the moon, and 132 tons of CO2 from the atmosphere. To put that into perspective, 132 tons of CO2 is the equivalent of over 13,000 gallons of gasoline consumption, or 6 garbage trucks of waste recycled instead of landfilled. Throughout May in Motion, employers witness these benefits firsthand, and we reward them for making a smart choice in promoting alternative commute options for their employees. In addition to our broader goals for May in Motion campaign this year, we are focused on making May in Motion COVID safe and supporting companies with their return to work plans. During a typical year, we have 100 participating businesses. This year, our goal was 50, and we made that and then some. We're excited to launch a new COVID-conscious spin on May in Motion. As the business community slowly brings employees back to the office or implements continued work from home policies, we are cognizant that the new normal, although no longer new, remains pretty abnormal. To host a safe May in Motion, we made some key changes, including adding working from home as an eligible smart commute mode. We've also adjusted our outreach to a virtual or socially distanced format, and we've joined several organization staff meetings via Zoom, developed a series of webinars in lieu of doing in-person presentations, and made May in Motion activities and games like crossword puzzles and scavenger hunts that could be done solo or in socially distanced teams. Our May in Motion Awards ceremony will take place on June 17th and will be conducted virtually. This year, the event will be open to the public, and we will be inviting May in Motion businesses, community leaders, and elected officials. Please look for a formal invitation soon from ACHD Commuter Ride. We'll welcome 2 speakers from local employers, St. Luke's Health System and Idaho Power, to discuss how they are supporting sustainable transportation for their employees, and as well as a national speaker from AECOM to speak about the future of mobilities and opportunities for our region. These are the participating businesses this year, which range from small businesses and nonprofit organizations to large companies like Micron, St. Luke's, and Simplot. As you can see by our participation that our organizations feel May in Motion is very important. They want to educate on the importance of using smart transportation options, and Commuter Ride provides valuable resources for them to do so. It's always exciting that these businesses come back year after year to support May in Motion. And in 2021, we have welcomed even a few new organizations. We are thankful to have 16 sponsors supporting May in Motion this year, which fully covers the program costs. Valley Regional Transit is the title sponsor, providing fare-free bus rides for the entire month of May. We recognize our sponsors and all our May in Motion collateral, print and digital advertising, and social media. In 2019, we had some amazing numbers reported. That is a job well done by our organizations and our commuters. Can you believe that 1,660 participants took over 1 million miles off the road? That's a big deal. We will be reporting our numbers for 2021's May in Motion in June at our virtual award ceremony. We hope that you found this presentation helpful in understanding why May in Motion is important. And at this time, I am happy to stand for any questions you may have. Thank you.
So one of the objectives is to encourage remote working.
Yes.
Well, you were
President
really
Goldberg.
successful last year.
Advantage.
That's
Sorry,
right.
I had to say that.
Yes. President Goldthorpe, I think there was a 80% telework happening.
That was amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I really appreciate everything you guys do. I look forward to the day when we can all get together again for May in Motion, because those events are a lot of fun. I'm a big fan of Commuter Ride, as you already know, and just say keep up the good work, and I can hardly wait till you're back up over 100.
Yeah, thank you. We had a Bike to Work Day. Well, they called it Bike Their Day because people are teleworking, and so we're just letting anybody track that is doing a bike commute. So this morning we set up at Heron Park, and we had a mobile bike tune-up company join us this morning, and we had 25 people engage with us and do bike tune-ups, and then we went up to Orchard and had 5 people up at Orchard. So it was a good day today, early day. Long day.
All right.
Awesome. Mr. President?
Yes.
Thank you, Kathleen. It's great to see the positive impacts that this program's having on the environment, and I really appreciate that COVID pivot that you did and didn't lose any ground. In fact, added new members to the program. So thank you for all your work, you and your team.
Thank you, Commissioner May. Thank you, President Goldberg.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Kathleen, thanks for the presentation. I was just really curious, have you been kind of eyeing any research or seeing what other partners across the country have been doing as we're entering a new phase in the pandemic, kind of how maybe behaviors are shifting or reevaluating, like, are any insights in how they might impact this program moving forward?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Pickering. We have talked with our partners that are in other states. They look to our van pool program, which is the oldest van pool program in the nation, for tips on what we're doing and how we're going back to make it COVID safe. Everybody is still a little bit leery because we're not out of the woods yet and people still aren't comfortable 100%, carpooling and van pooling. But what we are seeing is the telework boom that's going to be happening within businesses. We've seen and heard from several businesses that are reducing their floor space in buildings to teleworking and finding it's, a money-saving opportunity. Doesn't work for everyone. The collaboration is still very important, I think, in a business. But we all communicate through conferences and through the Association of Commuter Transportation Group to see what everybody's doing and stay in the pulse of how we're all making it safe and changing the way people commute.
Thank you. I have one last comment, and that's been over the last 6 years. I've been able to watch Kathleen at work. And from my past lives experience in sales, I can honestly say I can't think of a better person to have out there representing Commuter Ride and May in Motion than you.
Thank you, President Goldthorpe. I appreciate that.
You're here.
Thank you. Anyway, that'll be the end of our first work session, and I appreciate you being here.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you.
We'll go on to our second one, which is discussing an Maple Grove Victory to Overland project, the protected bike lane alternatives for existing facilities. And Ryan, hate to say it, but this is probably the last time we'll see you doing this. And is that why Joe's here? He's probably going to do them all from now on.
Yes, Joe Tate from here on out will do all presentations.
All right.
News to Joe.
Brand new information to him. There we go. Sorry about that. Everything's set up good, all right? Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. Commissioners, President, for the record, Ryan Cutler, Senior Project Manager, ACHD. Grateful for the opportunity to share some information this afternoon and discuss Maple Grove Road, Victory to Overland, and our pet and bike facilities in that location. Commissioners, as you're aware, this is a legacy project for ACHD. As we've been, we started on this project back in 2016. That's when we started the design contract and designing this project. We received our 99% design plans and moved on into right-of-way in 2018. We received our right-of-way certification in 2019, and then our 100% plans of June of 2020. Project was approved by this commission and put out to bid in September of 2020. And then, as we already mentioned, the project is currently under construction, and Knife River is our contractor on this project, and they are working as we speak, hopefully. Just to give you an idea of some of the challenges that came up as we looked at this project and at the recommendation of the commission, took a relook at this project to see what we might be able to do in the way of helping bikes and pedestrians on this roadway. And just to let you know, some of the challenges that came up as we did so are listed on this slide here, which are front-on housing and roadway access onto Maple Grove. There are a lot of facilities on this roadway section, a park, a school, and several front-on houses that made it very challenging from a design perspective to accommodate for all of them, and we looked at that as we went through our ped bike discussion. Also, there are 3 bridges that I'll show you on a map after this that were challenging to design based on our current right-of-way situation and the roadway space we had out there. One of those bridges also included a floodplain area, which added an additional challenge to what we could do and how we could expand that bridge. If you're familiar with Maple Grove, in this section on the east side of the road, there's a very large utility corridor for power with very large poles that run the length of the roadway. And so figuring out how we would manage that in our design was also a challenge, along with the upgrades the city of Boise wanted to make to their facilities. As always, on all of our projects in areas around the valley, drainage is always a challenge that we looked at and did the best with what we were given in the area out there as far as drainage design goes. This is an aerial of a portion of the roadway on Maple Grove. This is one of the aerials that we showed at our public involvement meeting, which we had 2 of during this process. I'm going to circle with my cursor. Hopefully you can see this. I will point out a few elements on this as I discussed on the previous slide. In this area here, there's a bridge structure that crossed here and another bridge structure that crossed in this area. As this canal turned and went around this subdivision here, this area is actually in a floodplain, which made it very challenging for us to expand the bridge section in this area to accommodate more than what we already had on this map. There are also, as you can see, several front-on houses on the left side of this map that had driveways that got pretty close to the front of their homes. And then directly across the street, you'll see the sidewalk has a buffer area and goes around several high voltage, large power poles. So it was a unique project, had about everything you can imagine on it that we had to juggle in our design to make that work. So as we looked at our pedestrian facilities, we had to get unique in our design. Some of the things that we considered out there and I wanted to bring to your attention, and I'll go through each picture here to give you an idea what they are, or what are ways that we could potentially add an element of safety, even though this is a legacy project that we've been designing for years and is under construction now. Is there anything that we can do out there to help with the safety of the pedestrians and the bikers in the area? And so the project team and myself, which included representatives from the city, and also some advisement from and information from the Bike Advisory Committee, we went back and took a look at the project to see what we could do. The picture on the top here, commissioners, that I'm circling is currently what it looks like on 5 Mile, a project that's recently been done that has a bike lane itself, vertical curb and gutter, and then an attached 7-foot sidewalk. Our current design on Maple Grove is very similar to what you see in this picture. So a finished product would look like that. It actually has a 6-foot bike lane with a 2-foot curb and gutter. The right-of-way, we did have to acquire some right-of-way, but there isn't any right-of-way that would be required in addition to this to go with the current design that we have completed now. But as you'll note, there is no vertical element between the travel lane for vehicles and a travel lane for bicycles. That's the top picture. This second picture is another option that we analyze, which are sometimes called hardened lane lines or lane separators. And you'll see there they have a vertical element and then some sort of candlestick element on top also for a little bit of visual safety. That also helps for our plows and our maintenance out there during the wintertime to see where these items are on the roadway so that they can be aware of that. So when we went through and looked at this option, some of the differences that you'll notice is that this would require us to narrow the bike lanes by roughly 8 inches. We would need to put this vertical element inside the white line so the vehicles could still see the painted line and then still have a vertical element on the inside of that. So it does narrow our bike lane up just a little bit. One of the concerns we have with any sort of vertical element going in at this point in time during construction is we've designed the roadway for a certain amount of drainage that goes and is conveyed to certain locations, and any sort of vertical element that we place on top of that will have an impact to drainage in the roadway. So we would look at an appropriate separation on these vertical elements to make sure that water could get through in between them and then still convey to our drop inlets and do what it's supposed to. As with anything being added to a project at this stage in the process, there will be an additional cost and time to the project because we would need to do this after the fact and go in and have this placed as it is not a part of the design as currently constituted. Some of the concerns that we do have from a cleaning standpoint of the bike facility, when you have a vertical element, you're going to have things that get trapped in the travel way of the bicycles, and we need a way to be able to clean that. I know that our maintenance team is working on the possibilities of being able to and acquiring a machine that would be able to do and clean in a bike area such as this. We do also have a desire and a need to clean in between those vertical elements in case you get sediment or anything trapped in that area. So those are items that we'll have to look at and continue to evaluate as we move forward on this. As I mentioned, there is potential cost in addition to time on this. Our estimate at this point in time for a hardened lane or a lane separator, based on the number of units that we would place in the ground, is somewhere in the $150,000 to $180,000 range on top of our current construction estimate. A third option that we looked at is the picture here on the bottom. Again, this picture on the bottom has some separation. We would likely have more separation than you would see on that bottom picture out on this roadway, again, for that same drainage concern that I brought up just a moment ago. Again, it will also narrow that bike lane by about 8 inches because that that extruded curb will need to be inside the bike lane and the painted line for drivers. There is also, again, that impact to current drainage, additional time to construction and cost to construction, also the additional sweeper behind the separator discussion that we just had. This element, very similar in the vertical nature of protecting the peds and bikes, would have a potential cost in a range of $80,000 to $100,000 in addition to what we already have for our construction out on the roadway. Next steps, it's our recommendation that we move forward with a BAC recommendation and the ACHD project team recommendation and install hardened lane lines or lane separator out on this facility for protection of peds and bikes in that location. And I would stand for any questions that you might have.
That was option 2 or 3?
That would be option 2.
2, that's what I thought.
The
Okay.
one in the middle, something similar to one of the picture in this middle one here.
Thought I remembered that from their meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ryan. I don't have any questions at all.
Thank you, Ryan.
Mr. President,
Yes.
Ryan, thank you for the presentation. Could you explain or just describe the difference in impact on drainage between design 2 and 3? Which one would have the most impact?
Sure. Thank you, President Goldthorpe and Commissioner Pickering. Great question. We feel like the drainage element on this would be similar because any sort of extruded curb that we would do, like in the picture on the bottom, picture number 3, we would still want to have a desired separation between each concrete element so that the water could flow through it. So I really feel like that we would work this together with our maintenance team and with our drainage folks and our design engineer to make it so that their impact is similar. The real difference between them, if we're talking about difference, is the extruded curb, obviously something that we lay down directly on top of the asphalt or is keyed into the asphalt. The hardened lane lines, the element that you see in number 2 there, is actually something that is glued and bolted down to the ground. So I think the biggest difference is actually in the maintenance of the two. If you have damage to an extruded curb, you're likely having the machinery to go out there and replace several of those in a row, where with the other element, the hardened lane line, you would simply pull that out and bolt another one down. So I think that's the main difference between the two. And I think the drainage difference would be minimal between the two, if that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. I think, like, just looking at the images, it seems that option number 2 would allow more, water to flow through it because there's more space, in between, and they're not just larger chunks of concrete. So, but that's really helpful to know kind of how it's constructed and the difference between the two. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And we currently have extruded curb on part of that section.
Correct. President Goldthorpe, out there now, there is no sidewalk out there now, and the sidewalk element or the pedestrian element now does have vertical curb. That picture on the bottom is actually taken from Maple Grove. And so there is no real bike facility out there. That's just intended for people generally walking in the area, but it is currently separated by an extruded curb. And so you see some of that out there now. And again, that bottom picture with the extruded concrete curb, we would space it out more than the picture is showing here. There would be more gaps for water to flow through, a little bit different. This stretch here has about 15 to 20 feet between the gaps. It's likely we would have 6 feet between the gaps with the concrete just to allow that water to get through.
And I believe that the hardened lane lines, this will allow for kids to feel a lot safer biking to school and walking to school, because there is an elementary school right there.
Right.
And a whole lot of mothers backed up twice a day to deliver or pick up their kids. And I think this will lessen that. Jim, anything?
Yeah, Mr. President, I just want to confirm, those aren't like candles that are like flexible and snap off. Those are actually hard material, right? In that hardened lane line separators. Isn't that right?
So, President Goldthorpe, Commissioner Hanson, yes and no. There are options for both, where you can have a candlestick version that's a harder version, or one that's a breakaway version. Just depends on what you want in that area. The base itself is a very hardened plastic at the bottom that's intended, obviously, to deter a vehicle that might go that direction. There are options on the candlestick on top for that to be more of a breakaway element or more of a structurally sound hard element.
Yeah, my preference would be for a structurally sound one. I'd rather the damage happen to a car than a kid. So it really does need to provide some protection. We had that issue on the Main Street and Fairview bridges where we had candles and they weren't perceived as providing any kind of protection. And I think if people need to feel safe, they need to recognize that the cars can't just wander into, or there's virtually no damage when they snap a little plastic thing off. So I really appreciated the presentation to the Bike Advisory Committee. I sat in and listened to it. There were lots of questions. I really look forward. I appreciate you, Ryan. It's funny, if Ryan Head was giving this presentation, the language he would have used would have been very different, because he's been so immersed in our level of traffic stress. And he would have described about how the way in which people would be able to use this facility. So I'm looking forward to a time when that language is fully integrated and we look at this as a complete street in the way we describe it. The other is that it really isn't an additional cost, because we should never build something that's not used. That picture on the top of 5 Mile, and there's way too many examples elsewhere where we built bike lanes, and we have attached sidewalks on busy 5-lane, 6-lane arterials that just aren't used because they're not safe. So it's really not an additional cost. It's really about, do we pay for it now when costs are lower, or do we wait later on when it gets in line for some program, and then we provide the protection so that people can actually feel comfortable using it? Because I think that's another really important way in which we describe these and tell the public we're not, and that's the complaint we get, is we build these things on arterials that are unsafe and not used. So I look forward to seeing this go forward, and the ultimate test is, and it seems like it's actually something that could continue to be improved. The ultimate test is if families do feel safe letting their kids walk to school, bike to school along that busy arterial, because by widening out that segment of Maple Grove in front of the school, it will be an area where it's great temptations to speed. There will be speeding, and it's just a given the extra width and the straight line in between the various traffic lights.
And was there a particular, design 2 versus 3, which one was like less stressful, if that's something that the BAC discussed? Or Ryan, could you chime in? Which one had the least,
number
lower
2,
level?
I remember.
Number 2.
Okay.
Yeah, they like number 2.
On the committee.
Okay.
And there's a couple of them listening in, I see now, but they're not allowed to speak, but we will hear back. But the extruded curb at the bottom doesn't provide any safety. It's very easy for a car to just jump over that if they're going too fast. And so there isn't a sense that that's a really safe option given the width of the road.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Just a question for Ryan. One question that comes to my mind also is snowplow damage, or the potential for snowplow damage. With respect to those options 2 and 3, do we have any kind of a sense as to whether one of those is less likely to be damaged by snowplows than the other?
Mr. President, Commissioner McKee, I think, McKinney, no offense to our maintenance team at all here, they're going to get hit. I mean, that's just the nature of how this works. That's part of the reason why you see a candlestick element, not only for the safety of the individuals on the other side of it, but also for a visual part of that during a snowstorm or when there's snow on the ground. It will help for that. So I guess with the way we looked at it is the easier thing to replace is item number 2, the hardened lane line, because it is glued down and bolted down. You could take 2 of those out and replace them, where if you have a series of concrete, if all those concrete areas get hit, it's a little more cumbersome to get out there with the machine, key it in, lay out the concrete. So we know there's going to be impact to them in a snow event. We know there's going to be problems on occasion with the plow. That's part of the reason why we lean towards option number 2, because of the replacement factor is a little simpler process than going out there with the concrete, if that answers your question.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I had
Thank
a
you.
question, Ryan, on both the breakaway and the static candlesticks. Is there a reflective component to that? So at night when someone's driving, the lights hit it, so.
Yes, Mr. President, Commissioner May, there is all sorts of variety of ways you can dress that up so that it can be seen at all times. So this is just an example of something we found for a visual effect, but there's all sorts of different colors and reflective things that you can do in varying range of cost on this. So yes, to answer your question is there are ways for that to be seen at nighttime.
I think that's good at night when people are on unfamiliar roads. Thanks, Ryan.
Any others? Ryan, thank you very much, but don't go anywhere.
Okay.
Item number 3, which is the Eagle Road, State Street, Downtown Eagle pedestrian and bike facilities update, is also Ryan's. And if I were to consider one over the other, this would be the main event.
Ryan, you're not sharing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just getting to it and then I will share it. Sorry. There we go. Is that working?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Ryan, how long have you been working on this project?
Seems like a long time, but we're excited to be here and to present a little more about this, get some discussion with the commission to make sure we're headed in the right direction. I know Dave Serdar said he was the main event. He lied. This is it right here. Did he leave already? No, he's gone. Okay. Again, for the record, Ryan Cutler, Senior Project Manager with ACHD, here to discuss Eagle and State Ped Bike facilities and where we are currently at with our project to keep the commission up to speed and help them understand where we're at and get some commission movement going forward so we know how to proceed. I want to give you a little bit of background about this project. It has been going for a little while now. As you're aware, the City of Eagle is very involved in this project and very vocal in their requests of what's happening in that area. If you remember, several years back, this was intended to be a roundabout at the State and Eagle intersection. That was a while ago, and I was, yes, involved during that process many years ago. We did a concept design. The roundabout was the #1 item in there as what was preferred in that location. We were asked by the city at that point in time to not proceed with the roundabout. The next item on the list was a quadrant intersection, which is what we are currently designing now. That was approved in the concept plan and requested by the city, mostly because of the limited impact it has on right-of-way and parking and the ability for them to do streetscaping in their downtown core, which is a major goal for their current plan for downtown Eagle. That was why it was suggested and asked. We came to the commission at that point in time and with a recommendation from the City of Eagle to move forward with the quadrant intersection. We have had a walkthrough with city staff and mayor and their landscape engineer on this just to make sure that we are keeping up with the goals that they have for their downtown area. And as you may remember, some of you commissioners had a joint meeting back in December with the City Council of Eagle to kind of go over this project as well. As our current design sits right now, the mayor of the City of Eagle and city staff there has been happy with including on-street parking and sidewalks wide enough for streetscaping. And again, as that's been one of the major goals for their downtown area. Our ACHD project team, we evaluated the project, current bike lanes and ped facilities for many different options to see what would work in this area and still accommodate the city and their desires to move forward with the project. You will see here in a moment, we'll talk about impacts to structures, utilities, and parking and how that played a role in our design decisions. And then also we've had 2 public involvement meetings and multiple stakeholder meetings with members of citizens of the City of Eagle and the business owners and those downtown to get their ideas about how to move forward with this project. And again, this design that we have now is based on an extensive public involvement and City of Eagle coordination for this project. Just briefly to give you history, we started back in 2020 on the design. with Kittleson as our consultant there. In June of 2020, we had our 30% design, and our team and stakeholder reviews took place at that time with business owners, and also that walkthrough that I mentioned with the City of Eagle to make sure they are comfortable with where we were heading forward. Our public open house was shortly after that, and then we went on to our 75% plans submittal. That was reviewed by our team with a member of the City of Eagle as a part of that as well. And at that point in time, we did review pet facilities and the challenges that we had in putting in certain pet facilities in the area. After that, we had that joint meeting that I discussed earlier where you were made aware of how things were moving forward with this project, and then we went straight into our open house number 2 in January, going back out to the public. Currently, right now, as you're aware, the BAC submitted some questions in a point paper that they wanted us to look at. We have paused the project at this moment, and we had our consultant Kittleson go back and reevaluate some of the areas for ped and bike improvements, and I'm going to walk you through some of that now, so you can have a better understanding of where we're at, and comments and questions are certainly welcome at any time. We received some larger roll plots of all of the areas that we are designing in this project. I've taken small snippets from each one of those, otherwise you wouldn't be able to see them. They're microscopic, so I've zoomed in on certain areas so you can understand a little bit where we're at. Currently, this is the section of State Street between 2nd and Eagle. And what's depicted on this map currently now is our current design at 95%. That includes on-street parking and sharrows on State Street, and then limited impacts to right-of-way, and some of the sidewalk in that current area actually stays in place. So you'll note on here the blue dotted line with the R/W is what would be a new right-of-way line that we would need to acquire as part of this project. The black line is dotted line is the existing right-of-way. You'll notice some of the areas stay the same, some of them change, but it allows us to keep that parking on that street, and then we stay out of the structures in the area. One of the options that we looked at on State Street is a multi-use path, and as part of that multi-use path, it required us to remove the on-street parking in the area. You'll see in the red dotted line on this map, this is additional right-of-way above and beyond the blue dotted line that we would need for our current design that we have. So there are additional impacts to right-of-way. Some of the things that we ran into as part of this, and you'll see on here that there are multiple impacts to structures that exist in the area. Not only structures that exist, but also patios for outside eating and dining, which was an important thing that we received feedback on during COVID from the businesses in the area, how grateful they were to have those outdoor eating facilities because that's the only way they could have their restaurants open. So there was a large contingent that was really eager to keep that opportunity. And then just to give you an idea too, on this corner that I'm circling here, there are lots of doors that open out into the sidewalk, and so we struggle a little bit with ADA compliance because those doors open out into an area that would be a pathway. So that is the multi-use pathway. There's a second option that we looked at on State Street, which is multi-use.
Yes.
Quick question.
Yes.
Ryan, I'm assuming, without digging deep, all of the car travel lanes are 11 feet?
In this area, President Goldthorpe and Commissioner Hanson, in this area, yes, they are.
So, and none of them are a 10.5 or 10 like we see in other slow-moving urban areas?
In this area, that is correct. There are some locations that we'll go through in the other maps where they're actually a little bit bigger than that.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, yes.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. So scenario 2 on State Street is a multi-use pathway. Again, the parking has parking, but it eliminates no turn lane as you move forward on State Street. So it would be a through turn scenario as you're heading west on State Street. If you wanted to turn north on Eagle Road, it would be a through straight scenario. That's another way that we can get enough room to make that work. conditions with that struggle because our queues and our backup and our vehicle delays go up because we remove a right-hand turn lane. Kind of defeats the purpose of the quadrant intersection when you remove this right-hand turn lane, slows everything down. Again, you have a lot of those same scenarios where there's...
Yes.
Sorry, Ryan, to interrupt you. I just want to get a clarification on the image because I thought I understood what I was seeing, but then I was second guessing it. So could you explain the green is, like, what is the green piece here?
Sure, Mr. President, Commissioner, happy to do that. So in this scenario here, obviously you have your travel lanes, then you have your curb and gutter in the lighter gray color. This green area is the buffer between the vertical curb and the start of the multi-use pathway. Generally, depending on level of service, that's a 4-foot buffer. That's what we have in this area here. And then the dotted area is the actual multi-use path itself.
And then what's the width of the multi-use path from the edge of the buffer to the black line versus the red line?
So the multi-use path in that area is a 10-foot multi-use path. So the black dotted line that I'm highlighting here is the existing right-of-way. To accommodate the buffer, the 10-foot multi-use path, we would need to go to the red dotted line for our new right-of-way acquisition.
So that is to maintain 10 feet, right?
Correct.
Is that what you're saying? Okay, thank you. And that would be the same for the south side.
Correct.
Ryan?
Thank you.
Is that 4-foot buffer, is there going to be anything special done with that, like landscaped or that sort of thing?
Yes, Mr. President, that is a discussion that we have with the City of Eagle. If they desire to landscape that area, then we go into a cost sharing with them on who maintains that, if it's going to be an area that is landscaped. Otherwise, if it's maintained by ACHD, obviously we don't have a landscaping department there, so there would be some sort of hardscaped element in there as that buffer.
Does that 4-foot buffer have to be there? If we were to provide some more space for pedestrians or bicyclists, would it have to be there?
Based on our current standards and the reports we received back from Kittleson, the desire is to have a buffer there, obviously to get people further away from the traveling vehicles. It would be our preference to have a buffer in there if we decided to go to the pathway element. As you can imagine, I discussed earlier, the City of Eagle is eager to have that area to be utilized as far as park benches and trees and different elements in their downtown area. And so that's part of their desire to be able to keep that area hardscaped and have more of a larger 10-foot sidewalk as opposed to a 10-foot multi-use separated pathway, because in that scenario they lose some of that area to be able to do some of their downtown landscaping and pocket bench areas that they're desiring to do. So it can be hardscaped all the way through there. Our preference, based on our standards and our level 2 and 1 and services that that have been being discussed about this, is that there is separation there. We know that if we hardscape all the way up to the curb, people are going to walk all the way up to the curb. And so if we're designed to have separation there, we would prefer, if we can, to have that be landscaped of some sort, just for that extra separation.
Okay, so in our discussions with the City of Eagle, for instance, was there much that was drilled down into what was being obtained, positives or negatives for what was being given up in terms of possible safety to the pedestrians and bicyclists and people who are in need of ADA compliance, that sort of thing? And what was the city's attitude about that?
Yeah, good question, Mr. President. There's been a lot of discussion, as you can imagine, with the City of Eagle back and forth on this. The City of Eagle is in favor of the current design that we have, that is still a 10-foot sidewalk scenario, but it does come directly up to the edge of the curb. That falls in line with the goals that they have as far as the ability to do their landscaping and their park bench and their trees without having an impact on the current structures that are there. They feel like that we can still do that with the low speeds in that area, 25-mile-an-hour roadway in this section. It maintains the parking, which has that separation from the roadway and the actual ped facilities, and still allows them to do their landscape element and stay out of the structures in the area. That's their preference in discussing that with the City of Eagle. And when we walked that area with them, with the staff and the mayor, they were really excited about those possibilities and not having to give up or get into any of the structures along the roadway there.
What are what's the distance between the black line and the red line? I'm trying to think if we would need to do that if we narrowed the travel lanes to 10 feet.
My estimation of this, it's about 4 to 5 feet.
Well, a distance, that's on each side?
Correct. Yeah, from the red line to the black line to the red line on both sides is roughly 4 to 5 feet. And that's mostly what you're seeing in the green in the buffer is just being added on the backside.
Right. So the City of Eagle is okay with obtaining additional right-of-way from the businesses such as restaurants that would like to have the outside dining facilities?
Their preference is not to do that. That's why their preference is the scenario that we're moving forward with now, because it limits the impact of those things. Anything above beyond that we do with a multi-use path and separation does get into the businesses and the restaurants and all of those things. They're in favor of our current 95% design that does not have a multi-use path and a buffer.
Okay, and we're going to go through one more scenario before I ask you which ones our partners, meaning the BAC and others, have given preference for.
So I have this scenario, these three types of scenarios on State Street, Eagle, and Plaza is what I'm planning on showing to you.
Okay.
This was the last scenario on State Street. If you're okay with me leaving that and moving on, or if you have any questions at this point.
I just had a quick question,
Sure.
Brian. So this just has parking on the one side, is that correct? Okay.
Yep. Scenario 2 does, yep. But again, that takes away that right-hand turn lane out of State Street.
Mr. President,
Yes.
Brian, how many total parking spots are we talking about?
Mr. President, Commissioner Pickering, good question. This is just a small section of it. There's additional roadway. I believe it's about 14 to 16 parking spots, which if you're familiar with the downtown area of Eagle is a fairly substantial amount of parking.
Well, don't they have another like dry lot just off of, I forget the parallel street. It's kind of like an alley, but isn't there a dry lot that's right off Eagle there on the right side?
Yeah, Commissioner Pickering, I believe you're referring to off of Old Park next to Rembrandt's. There are a couple of locations that are current dry lots. Those lots, those are used for parking now, but are actually leased from a private property owner that at any point in time could sell those lots for commercial development. They're just currently being leased by the city. I believe that's what you're talking about.
Mr. President,
Yes.
Ryan, they've actually have sold the Tri-Cities lot, and they're still talking about the other one where the gas station was, and I'm not quite sure what's going on with the lot there but I believe those are all probably going to be absorbed. So.
And that's one of the challenges that we're working through here is the City of Eagle downtown area doesn't have a lot of parking. They're losing more parking when they're selling off the parcels like this. And any scenario that we do that takes away parking from the downtown area is a challenge, and we're hearing about that from the businesses in all these scenarios. And then on the flip side of that, we're hearing from the biking community that says, well, we'd like to have facilities in there. And so this is where you guys get to make the great decision about how we move forward
Yeah,
with that.
and I'll tell you, my concern is that the city has been knowingly and willingly given up other parking options and then leaving us holding the bag on the decision.
Which, Mr. President, which?
Well, for instance, for years and years, there's been the extra properties around the whole area that we're talking about. And all the discussions that have been happening for the last 5 years anyway. And the city could have said, hey, well, we don't want you to build this roundabout because it the incursion into the gas station property and other things, but, you know, they could have purchased that for parking. Just my opinion.
Mr. President, they do have that shared parking lot that they have with Smoky Mountain. So they share that with them over there by the gazebo. So that's a few spaces. I don't know. Do you know how many spaces are there?
Don't
It's
know how
limited.
many,
Yeah,
but it's
parking
not,
down there
not
is
large, but
pretty
as you can
premium.
imagine, the number of parking spaces
Right.
isn't great. Yeah.
All right, let's go to the other one.
So Eagle Road, same kind of scenario. This is the current design on Eagle Road. As you're aware, Eagle Road is also a 25-mile-an-hour roadway through this stretch. I've kind of zoomed in a smaller spot here to point a few things out. So this does have an on-street bike lane and attached sidewalk, and you can see that in the black specked area. That's the sidewalk. And again, our blue dashed line is what would be the new acquired right-of-way. You can also see that there are areas that would be maintained and not redesigned or constructed because they exist there now. This has limited impacts to the right-of-way, no major impacts to the transmission line, which I'll show you here in a minute, is in this location. As you're aware, in the downtown Eagle area, there's a major transmission line for Idaho Power that we did our best to avoid. And then also the bridge structure that goes over the canal there would not need to be widened or improved in this scenario. There's the picture of what I'm talking about. As you're aware, there's a business, and this transmission line, it literally is a foot from the edge of that building, between that building and the edge of the power pole. And so the struggle would be there is what you do with that Idaho Power facility, and the ability to underground that is not known at this point in time, or might be extremely costly. So as part of our design, we did our best to avoid having to move that facility there. This is the second Eagle Road scenario, which is a multi-use pathway with a 4-foot buffer. Same scenario as I described before. The green is a buffer area. The black speckled is the actual pathway itself. The red dashed line would be the right-of-way required to accommodate this option. Just to give you an idea, you'll note here's where that transmission line pole is. As we go to a buffered scenario there, we impact that pole location, which is very challenging. It also has impacts to the building on the business that's there next to the power pole, which is an impact to the downtown area. Also directly across the street has impacts to the Rembrandt's
Ryan,
coffee house area.
there where that big power pole is, could we not limit the length of that 4-foot buffer and eliminate the 4-foot buffer in front of that pole so that there wouldn't be that problem?
There is always potential of that. Just following our current guidelines that we have with a 4-foot buffer, which is our separation, a design separation there. I'm showing you the options that go following our guidelines. There's always options to modify if that's what you desire.
Okay.
Oops, sorry about that. Any questions before I move off of Eagle Road and just show you a couple more maps?
Ryan, just so I'm following, could you go back a couple slides, because the original plan we were discussing, because I'm just trying to make sure that I'm not confusing streets, because we're talking about Eagle, and then the previous one with the traditional like fold outs, that was on Main Street, correct?
On State Street. So this is State Street heading east-west. Now we're looking at Eagle Road heading north and south.
Right. So are all of these elements going to be built together, or are you just showing me segments because that's what we can see with the screen and it's all part of this cohesive build?
Great question, Mr. President, Commissioner Pickering. These are all intended to be built as the downtown project together.
Thank you.
Yep. So the last area that I'll show you is obviously an area of concern for the city of Eagle. If you've been on Plaza Drive that runs there between the Wells Fargo and the Albertsons, there's quite a bit of congestion there. And as part of the quadrant intersection working properly, it requires 2 left-hand turn lanes as indicated on this map in this location to take some of the strain off of Eagle Road and some of the strain off of Plaza. So again, this is scenario one, our current scenario, where we have limited right-of-way needs. The right-of-way is being shown in blue, and then limited impact to landscaping, and we do have some access control there near the McDonald's and the Wells Fargo. It does, again, as I mentioned, allow for the dual left-hand turn lanes to be a part of this project. I'm just giving you a visual here if you haven't been down there. This is looking down Plaza Street. Currently, you can see the landscaped area between the Wells Fargo Bank and the Albertsons. In this scenario, a good portion of this landscaping is maintained in the drawing that I just showed you. In the next scenario, when we do a multi-use path in scenario one, we still have our dual lane turning scenario and a 4-foot buffer, again indicated in the green on the map. There will be additional right-of-way needs as shown in the red dotted line above and beyond where the blue dotted line is in our previous scenario. That has some impacts when we do that. To landscaping, that picture I just showed you, a majority of that landscaping would need to be modified or would go away based on the buffer area and multi-use path that we would put in. Also would like to show you some of the impacts it would have to the Wells Fargo building. You can see here we anticipate that would get into the front of the Wells Fargo building and would also get into several parking spots in the Albertsons grocery store location.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Ryan, speaking of the impacts there, I know the city, we have like a little park area there in front of the McDonald's, and as you just mentioned, cutting into the Wells Fargo Bank building. Is there any reason why we couldn't offset that a little bit and take more from the Albertson side?
Mr. President, Commissioner May, good question. We have not analyzed that yet as part of our design. There's potential to always do something, but you get into that scenario of, well, why did you take from my side more and less from the other side? And now you're still impacting the Albertsons parking lot. We'd have to check also with the Albertsons and what their code requires for amount of parking spaces based on their structure and see how much we would be getting into that. That has a great impact on our right-of-way negotiations and the amount of dollars we have to spend to acquire that ground.
It might be good to know if they'd be willing to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Ryan, how wide are these lanes? Are they different width?
Mr. President, Commissioner Pickering, there is a little bit of difference in these lanes. Our turn lanes, our left-hand turn lanes in this scenario are a little bit bigger than your standard 11-foot lane. That happens quite often just to give enough vehicles enough room to make that turn. If you've got larger trucks, especially in an area where you've got an Albertsons or people that are making deliveries to those types of facilities, they do require a little bit of space there to be able to make that turn properly. So our left-hand turn lanes here are a little bit larger. I think it would be a struggle to narrow those down just for the safety of the turning vehicles there. Our outside lane, I believe that's closest to the curb, is a standard lane width, but the turn lanes on this are a little bit larger. Any follow-up on that? Okay. I'll go on to, this is the second scenario on Plaza Drive, which is a multi-use pathway. Again, it's a little bit larger of a buffer area with a separated pathway. This scenario also only has one left-hand turn lane as opposed to two. That gets us out of a little less of the landscaping. It gets us away from the structures a little bit. Again, the trade-off there is that you only have one left-hand turn lane. That makes the quadrant intersection struggle a little bit. It has our queues and our delays will go up based on this scenario. We still possibly would have a little bit of impact to the structure at Wells Fargo and a little bit of impact to the parking at Albertsons, but it would get us out of some of the landscaping. Again, the trade-off there being you only have one left-hand turn lane, and it doesn't do a lot for your queues and delays in that area, which is a major problem currently in this location. There still are some additional right-of-way needs necessary, but it is another scenario that we looked at just to see how it would have impact in the area.
Ryan, the question, because this has been done in Boise near 8th Street, in order to mitigate some of the possible congestion challenges with trucks. Can the city decide that they want deliveries to be at certain times a day?
Mr. President, I don't know the answer to that question. I'm assuming they have some authority when they approved the locations that they could do that. I just don't know what that is at the moment.
I know there's been instances in Meridian where at Lowe's and Walmart on Overland, they don't have trucks bringing in, foodstuffs and everything else at 3 o'clock in the morning, but they, they could do it before the rush hour or a little later in the evening.
And that's something we'd have to review with the city if they have any of those restrictions on their entitlement improvement there, or if they have the ability to do that after the fact. I'm not sure of the answer on that question.
Thanks.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Ryan, could you tell me what's kind of the history with each of these different roadway segments? Did we inherit these designs, or were we involved in any form or fashion with these current designs that we're looking to fix?
Thank you, Mr. President, Commissioner Pickering. Obviously, State Street and Eagle Road have been there for a while. So I'm sure we were definitely involved in some way, shape, or form on those. Plaza Drive and that improvement came later on, and I'm sure that was a part of a development agreement that we had with ACHD and the developments in the area. We did a concept study early on in the early mid-2000s, 14 and 15, that studied this entire area, the downtown area, for this project, and then ranked out in that concept what projects were a best fit for the area based on the roadway sections we have now, whether we inherited it or that's how they were designed. As you can imagine, as the city of Eagle has continued to grow, the population has continued to grow, the more vehicles are there, have found the roadways a little outdated, and we're looking for options to be able to adjust, not only to help the pedestrians in the area, but also to be able to get traffic to run smoothly through this downtown corridor. So based on that study that we had done back in 2014 and 15, we've used those scenarios in our discussions with the city on how to move forward. Again, this was the selection of the city, and option number 2 was the quadrant intersection, and that's how we've kind of gotten to where we are today.
Another question, Ryan.
Thank you.
I know what some of the cities do in the valley, but what does Eagle do when they make transportation recommendations to us? Do they hire professionals, or do they have a transportation person on their staff, or what?
Thank you, Mr. President. Yes, they have a staff member, Nicole Baird from the city, who is their long-range planner and transportation specialist for their office, sits on our team and makes the recommendations. She often goes back and discusses things with the mayor and council after we discuss, and then brings their recommendations back to us. That's generally how we get the information from the city, or it comes out in joint meetings like we had before, where we discuss it with the city. So that's currently now how we go through our process. On occasion, they will submit an official letter to us, but generally it comes from their staff who's contacted their elected officials, and they bring it to us, and then I bring it to you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions on this current scenario? So just to run through a few conclusions of what we went through a lot, I just want to kind of wrap it up on that. But again, the current quadrant intersection design allows for the goals and future plans of the city of Eagle. This was out of our concept report, their selection that they brought to us and was approved by the commission to move forward with. Any separated bike or ped facility would have significant impacts to right-of-way utilities and existing structures, as I mentioned and showed on the plans that we looked at. And that includes Wells Fargo, Albertsons, TRR Outfitters, Rembrandt's, the Barbershop, Da Vinci's, Smoky Mountain Pizza, and there's probably more that I could have added to that list, but just to help you understand the balance that we're trying to have here between safety and transportation, and also helping the businesses stay afloat in the area and not affect them too much by acquiring a right-of-way which doesn't allow them to operate their business. And then also the major adjustments to existing design at this point. Any major adjustment would push construction of this project out one additional fiscal year.
Is that any concern to the city of Eagle? I know it hasn't necessarily been in the past when they've wanted changes.
We've had a lot of, Mr. President, we've had a lot of discussions about that. As you're aware, we also designed Aiken Street was a current design. We're intending to put these two projects together, this project and Aiken Streets together, so that we're not going back and continually constructing in downtown Eagle. I think the preference of the city of Eagle would be to move forward as they're recognizing the struggle to get vehicles and pedestrians through the area safely. So their intent at this time would for us to hopefully move forward on the timeline that we currently have.
Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mary first, please.
Sorry. With the current design, then coming in on Old State, we're shifting that traffic threshold over onto Second. So if they want to go out to Eagle Road, or they also have the other option of just going through the Eagle Road intersection to Old Park, left out onto Aikens.
Correct.
So that intersection turn is going away.
Correct.
Correct? Thank you.
Ryan, just so I'm clear, so you're saying major adjustments include adopting what the VAC would like us to do, right? Is that what you're referring to? Just want to make sure I'm understanding that correctly.
Yeah, Mr. President, Commissioner Pickering, that's correct. Obviously, you saw the letter they submitted that had some pretty significant changes that were desired to be evaluated. We're bringing this to you today to show you what some of those impacts might be, and just letting you know that if that's the route that the commission takes for us to do that, there are significant changes that need to be done to the plans that will push this project out a year. And then in addition to pushing it out a year, have those impacts to right-of-way and businesses, as we mentioned.
When would this be back to us for like a vote or what have you?
Oh,
Or are you guys
hang
taking
on a
this feedback from
second.
today and recalling?
We've got the numero uno coming up for that one.
Hi,
Hi.
members of the commission, President Goldthorpe. My name's Justin Lucas, just for the record. I'm the Deputy Director of Planning and Project Management. Just want to thank Ryan. He's been doing such a great job. I didn't mean to cut him off here, but when it comes to the question about when we will come back to you, this project has been in front of the commission on multiple occasions, not only through various integrated 5-year work plans, but also your adopted budget. We've had joint meetings with the City of Eagle. We have had various opportunities to take input, which we appreciate. We had no plan to bring the project back to the commission at any time for a vote because we believe we have the direction from you to move forward at this point. If that were to change, that would be something that the commission would need to request. Just to be honest, at this point in the process, any significant changes, as Ryan mentioned, would have certainly delay the project. And changes at this point, we would very likely, and I would almost, it would be very difficult for us to make additional changes without re-engaging the public, the City of Eagle, all of the previous stakeholders that have participated in this process. As you know, the business community specifically has been very, very involved in this process, and we, if there were changes, we would need to re-engage through various public involvement efforts, et cetera, to make sure everyone's aware of the changes we're making. As of right now, all the documents, the designs have been fully vetted with the City of Eagle and the public, and once again here today with the Commission.
Appreciate that.
Justin, I appreciate that. I just think it's, as a new commissioner, I feel like that's a bit unfortunate because I don't want to be signing off on any project where I know that it's going to put folks in harm's way. And that is a busy street, even though it's only 25 miles an hour. And I'm concerned about the width of the roads and not having them, there's lots of these little options that I feel like could have been teased out more. So just so you all know, I'm just not really comfortable with the design that you've shared with us initially as this proposed design.
If I might, Jim's been pretty quiet up till now. And I'd like Jim, if you would, please, to kind of talk to us for a moment about what you're thinking, as Alexis just has, and then I'd like for Commissioner May to kind of tell us what's going through her mind as well, this being her city and her district.
Thanks, President Goldthorpe. Yeah, listening to this discussion, all the questions that we've asked, that the BAC has inquired about, and their concerns, and the language even in Ryan's presentation with regard to business activities, the concern about parking, are all the kinds of questions that one would ask of an urban renewal district. And so it struck me as, well, CUNA's got an urban renewal district for its downtown. Boise has addressed these in its downtown with urban renewal districts because they're very complicated, and you have to integrate all these difficult things with investments that are made by private businesses. You have to address parking, whether parking can be replaced with parking structures, and in urban areas, you move towards building parking structures because there just isn't the right of way. There isn't the space to simply have a vast parking, surface parking. And so the question is, do we just go forward and say, well, this is what Eagle wants, Eagle, it'll be built. But we've identified early on, there's these problems that businesses will have, certainly that pedestrians, people walking and biking, if it's intended to be a growing, a more dense downtown environment, they'll have those problems that'll have to be fixed in the future. And then the question is who fixes them. My view, of course, is they'll have to have an urban renewal district to fix all that and to fully integrate all those uses. Even though, I appreciate Ryan saying, we have to help businesses stay afloat. We have to address business activities. I've been told over and over and over again, and is that we're not about measuring return on investment to businesses. We're about, moving people, transportation stuff. And in an urban core, all of this ought to be done like in CUNA and Meridian and Boise by an urban renewal district. But right now we've gone down the road, and I recognize that it sort of initially arose with a roundabout design, and then the city didn't want that because it wanted to see other ways in which cars move through downtown. So they now have this new feature, and this other one that we have put a lot of money into designing to make sure cars move through a downtown area, as well as go to businesses in the downtown. So I think that the observations that are all totally valid, that there are problems, there's serious problems, and ACHD is not in a good position to address most of those problems. So the question is, do we just let them build it and then let them pay to fix it later on, or do we somehow turn over what we've invested? So it's not a complete loss. We've invested a tremendous amount. We've got a lot of really good data, a lot of really good input. And then when Eagle creates its urban renewal district, it can use that in order to make those improvements. That, of course, would play, and because you have to go through a whole process of creating an urban renewal district. But this is clear. This should be the last time that ACHD attempts to try and do urban planning, urban renewal. It's an urban renewal district function.
Mary, before you do, could we ask Dave to weigh in if he's got anything to say?
Absolutely.
Dave, how about you?
Yeah, I think the concerns that have been expressed are all valid concerns, but I think we ought to consider the fact of how far along in the process we already are, and whether it's appropriate to kind of derail the whole process at this point. In large part because as our standards and preferences with respect to bicycle and pedestrian facilities change, we can get ourselves locked into kind of a feedback loop with every project that comes along. If every project that comes along, we try to go back and fix things according to the way we want them now, whereas when they were being designed, they were being designed in a different way. We're going to get ourselves bogged down a lot. I think just, spinning our wheels and not getting things done and moving forward with the project at hand, as well as other projects that are down the line. So it has a domino effect on our ability to complete these things. And I'm hesitant to say, yeah, let's go back and let's reinvent the wheel here. Even though, I can see, some of the concerns here. You've got major right-of-way constraints in this area. So I would say let's really think twice before we decide to, redo this.
Mr. President, could I step in just 1 second? Just so everybody's aware, Eagle does have an urban renewal district, and we have been working with them during this process. Yeah. Part of all the landscaping and the discussions we've been having down in the downtown area is from the urban renewal district, and we're partnering with them on that.
Thanks, Ryan.
Well, then, Mr. President, I think this should all be done by the urban renewal district because they collect the taxes for transportation in the urban renewal district, so they can handle it.
Mr. President,
Mary?
Ryan, when did this start? This conversation's been going on for years and years now. I know it started with the roundabout, and what was that? Been about 10 years? Or?
Yeah, the actual concept study itself was in 14 and 15, I believe, but that started prior to that. Obviously, they asked us to come and take a look and see what could happen. So we've been, 9 years working through this process and trying to obviously get it right. So here we are.
Absolutely,
Yep.
back and forth and back and forth. And I really commend you for going back after our input from the BAC, which, we're grateful that they took the time to do that. You took a hard look at it. You have reengaged with the city and the business owners. And the other scenarios do make an impact on those businesses that front the road. Parking is a premium in downtown Eagle. That's just the reality of the situation. And with moving the traffic now off Old State onto Second and then through to Old Park, that's going to take a little bit of the load off there. Did you talk with them with those three alternatives for the bike lanes, the extruded curb and the hard separators? Did any of that come in? My concern is Second Avenue when we're throwing all the traffic down there. I just wondered if that was part of the equation.
Yeah, Mr. President, Commissioner May, so at this point in time where we are still in our design portion of this project, we went back and looked at our policy as far as the buffered area and the separated pathway. Stepping back into my previous presentation, the only reason we went that route on that project is because we were in construction already. Okay. And that's something that we looked at as a possible fix there because we were out of the design phase. We didn't look at it on this project here because we're still in the design phase. Albeit late in the design phase, we still are in the design phase.
So I would agree with Commissioner McKinney. I think, obviously safety is the utmost concern, and I don't believe for a second that the City of Eagle is choosing to put their community in harm's way. Right now, if we can still have some input, maybe with the separation there with the bike lanes, I would be open to hearing more about that. But at 95% completed now down the road with our designs, I think we have to be really careful before we decide that we're going to start pulling the plug on these things. But it's been pretty, I've gotten a lot of calls, talked to the businesses. They do not want anything that's going to impact their frontage. He illustrated what the impacts are going to be. Landscaping is one thing, but you're cutting into the businesses, and the business community is just not in favor. And the City of Eagle and the City Council and the various entities there that you've consulted with, they're all in favor of the current design. Yeah. So I know we've tried to be very inclusive and receptive to the input from other cities, and so I don't know how we depart from that now with the City of Eagle.
I don't think we necessarily have to. Mary and I have actually had a couple of laughs over this whole history. If I could go back, this is me personally, if I could go back even 6 years, I'd give them parts of State Street, tell them to put pavers in there, make it look like 8th Street in Boise, and say, we're going to do this with Eagle Road, but you guys can take care of State Street as a pedestrian facility, and you got plenty of room that you can purchase and build additional parking in, because they could have. But unfortunately, we're not 6 years ago. My preference would be to see some more room for pedestrian safety. And the only way I could see to do that on State Street is to narrow the lanes about a foot or two, which would be just fine with me. I don't care how slow traffic has to go through there, as long as it's safe and it flows well. But there are lots of people that are, again, going to be disenfranchised by the exact design that the city wants, when they don't necessarily have to be. And as both Dave and Mary have indicated, and as you have heard me scold people before, when we're at the 95% level, there's been all kinds of opportunity for people and elected officials and everyone else to weigh in, all kinds. And this has been going on since the day I was first sworn in at ACHD. So I couldn't, in good conscience, say that everyone hasn't had the opportunity to weigh in. I know we asked for something from the Bicycle Advisory Committee and we got it. And I think we can do them a little bit of good without making very many adjustments, especially with right-of-way, but with just the from curb to curb type thing to make it safer for people. And I'd ask you seriously to consider that, but I'm not willing to make major changes at this point, no.
Yeah, I would agree. We're a little far down the road on this.
Yeah, Mr. President, I think
Yes.
it's appropriate that we've done all the work. We've fronted a lot of costs for the renewal district, and that at this point they take over the rest of the right-of-way acquisition and the construction costs, because they're using ACHD tax revenue anyway, and that the concerns are owned by the city. Those are the kinds of things that now I realize the error was following two different tracks. If we were functioning in an urban renewal district and yet ACHD was funding something separate from that, they've gotten the added benefit of that system. So I think I don't think it's a loss at all. At 95% of money that the URD would have spent anyway, and they can just move forward and do this. And if it doesn't work for their downtown, they're the ones who will need to fix it. And the data that we've collected indicate that there's aspects of it, I think, just exactly as you described. If they're insisting on 11-foot lanes and wider, that they will run into problems in dense urban areas. You just can't have sidewalks for restaurants, walking, as well as biking, all happening in the same space. So, and the lack of course, downtown parking garages as the city continues to grow. It's up to 20,000 people now. They're going to have to address with a URD anyway.
So any idea, Ryan, how much the urban renewal district is participating in all this?
Mr. President, so our discussion with them and our cost share with them will be that the non-transportation elements, similar to what other projects that we have, the non-transportation elements that will be added in addition to mainly on State Street on this project, that will be added into the project, is being funded and cooperated with the URA from Eagle. And then we are doing the transportation components of that. So that's why the City of Eagle has their hired landscaped architect has been a part of our project team. They are handling the parts that the development of the URA will be handling. We're handling the transportation element of that, and we've been cooperating on that through the entire project.
Okay, I understand from what Mr. Price has told us and what we have, decided to do, pushing some of the legislative changes that we've done, that, this doesn't go for this project, but in the future, as we have done agreements with urban renewal districts and requiring that they participate far more in the new asphalt and stuff, that this, we as an agency remember not to do this anymore.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I just want to let everybody know I have to hop off. And thanks for the lively discussion. I echo your sentiments.
See ya.
And Mr. President, maybe just to wrap this discussion, the next steps as planned by staff, assuming that the commission approves with this, is that we're planning to move forward with our current 95% design and moving forward with our right-of-way acquisition in 22 and construction in 23. That is our recommendation.
And Ryan, on the current design, we have the 2 left turn lanes off of Plaza.
Correct.
Because that is just a parking lot. I mean, you
Yeah.
just, depending on the time of day, you can't move over there. So I think that's critical to get that taken care of. And I'm not a real fan of just bike lanes and Sharrows. I've made that perfectly clear. I do like some sort of protection there. So if we could just look at that and see if there's any way we could do something to kind of have that separation.
Okay.
I think that would be a good idea. But thank you for all your hard work on this.
You're welcome.
And we're going to miss you.
Thank you.
Unless
I appreciate
anyone has something else to say to Ryan, that's what I want to say too, is how much I think we're going to miss you being around here. It must have been a hell of an offer.
I did all right for myself, sir.
They're lucky
Yeah.
to get you.
Thank you. Likewise, I
We
appreciate it.
wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Right. That concludes our work sessions. So we're done for the day. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
I'm sure we'll see you around.